is for.
Thank you very much. Second question. How do you intend to promote accessibility in the university community?
Alright, I think there's lots of different aspects in regards to accessibility. I'll talk first about using the momentum that's already been gained from our current Human Rights Office in the CSA, the HREO on campus, as well as what we call the AWG, or the Accessibility Working Group, that the current academic commissioner chairs right now. I think they've done a lot of work over the past few years to come up with some strategies of improving accessibility on campus, and I really hope that I can fill the shoes that have been placed there, because that's not necessarily the strength of my portfolio that I'm bringing to the table. I think one really good example of that is what just happened this past week is the Accessibility Awareness Day. And I think that was a great event, but it did bring together all of the partners on campus that are working towards accessibility, and I think it's really important that if we're doing something so centralized as accessibility awareness, that all of the partners that have a say in that and that are involved in that process need to be brought in and included. And so it'd be my job to try and make sure that all of the parties are included in that, because I'm not necessarily the expert, and I think it's bringing experts in. Barry Wheeler was just down here recently, and I've worked with him in the past, and bringing those experts to talk about what needs to be done and what can be done and how to do that. And I think the biggest aspect is making sure that people know how to ask for what they need. That my door is always open to them and always open to what they desire and what they'd like to see as a more accessible campus. And I'll also talk a little bit about financial accessibility since I have some time on this question. And the last question will deal with it. And so in regards to financial accessibility, there's been a lot of literature written all over the world, in particular to the Ontario province. We have a huge post-secondary education sector here. And I think two really important documents that I think come from financial accessibility are the Ray Report and our Presidential Task Force on Accessibility in Education. I think some of the statements that are made in those two documents are really pertinent to framing the way that we look at financial accessibility in the university, and maybe rethinking some of our traditional views about tuition.
Thank you very much. Question 3. The University of Guelph is under financial hardships. As a result, there will be significant changes to the academic learning environment. What solutions can you present to the university administration, and how will you effectively communicate those solutions, as well as the current reality, to the students?
I'll start actually a little bit backwards, I think, in regards to the way that the question is phrased. I think the current reality is really important to understand. The university has been in financial hardships for a very long time. It's been a continual issue. The difference now, it seems to be, is the fact that the entire economy is in a hardship, and so the same sort of concept of the environmental or larger picture has changed drastically, and the magnitude of the cuts that we're looking at and the changes to the way that we operate are vastly different. And I think that reality really needs to be explained to students. And so within that model, I don't necessarily have the answers. Okay, the staff that work on the fourth floor of the university administration, I just found out recently, one of them is working time and a half, and so their entire job has changed to be a whole entire job and a half worth of work. And so I think that goes to speak to the amount of complexity and work that needs to go into these sorts of issues. And so I think that it's not just an issue that's within my portfolio as academic, but I think it means working with someone like the Finance and Human Resources Commissioner, the other academic leaders on campus, and students in general, to educate them about what's going on, to give them the capacity to respond, and to formulate a response that fits within a workable model. The university's done a lot of work recently with what we call the integrated planning process, and that's looking at what our strengths and weaknesses are as a university, and that's also pointing at what we need to support, what might be the best things to cut, and so on and so forth. And that process is continually going. And I think something's coming to Senate in April. It's sort of a large package of what's going on for the future years. And I think given what comes forward to Senate in April, it'll be really important to respond to and work with, trying to facilitate the best student experience that we can get out of the necessary model. One thing I'd like to talk about is working with the Board of Governors. I think it's really important that we have representatives on the Board of Governors that are involved in academic processes. They may be the financial governing body, but now that we've got finances and academic and curricular change merged together for this budget cut, we can't no longer work in silos. And so bringing those two groups together, I think, is vastly important. And communication. I think we can look at training and workshops and going out and providing things that students can come to, but just as equally, we need to start going out to the students. And I think this forum is an example of that. This is here for students to come to, but in general, we need to go to the students because they're not here.
So we'll be moving on to questions from the floor. These questions have a 1-minute time limit. So the first question. The academic portfolio works heavily with members of the university administration. How will you ensure the needs and academic concerns of students are prioritized while maintaining a constructive relationship with the administrators?
I think that's a great question. And I think that's one that a lot of students sometimes struggle with, and student representatives as well. I think it's important to have a relationship established that's based off of respect and capacity. And I think if you can demonstrate as a student leader that what you're saying, A, comes from your constituents, and B, is based off of a knowledge base of understanding the issue as completely and fully as possible, the university administration respects that. Okay? It doesn't mean that we agree on everything, and we most certainly won't in the coming years, but if they understand that I'm an ardent defender of what our students are looking for, and that the reasons behind that are that we've went out and educated the students and given them the best possible way to respond, that I believe that respect and that capacity is important. 1 minute's really short.
Thank you very much. Question 2. Many important programs are likely to be closed or restructured in the next few semesters. How will you ensure that courses and programs valued by students are preserved, or those elements are incorporated into the curriculum?
Sorry, can you just repeat the last part of the question, Jeff?
How will you ensure that courses and programs valued by students are preserved, or that elements are incorporated into the curriculum?
I think the basic answer to this is that we do it from a university community point of view. Okay, and we have lots of different stakeholders on campus, and I think it's really important that we think about things slightly differently. Okay, and that changes must happen. Okay, if they don't happen, this university wouldn't be functioning down the road. Okay, and I think all of us would love to see the institution here, but we're going to see it in a different way and operating in a different way. So getting together as campus communities and looking beyond your program of BSc or BA or beyond your major or beyond your minor, and thinking about ways that we can do things differently and more effectively and more efficiently is really going to be the solution to that. I think in regards to how we do that, it needs to be the fact that we engage students, okay? It is slightly upsetting to me that I'm the only candidate sitting up here for the academic portfolio, when I think some of the most important changes will be coming in the academic side of the university, and I think students care a lot, but it's the fact that how do we make students care and feel that they can have a voice back? And so creating a forum or an avenue for that I think is most important, and that's going to be classroom speaking. That's going to be going to where the students are and having them have a response to us, and not necessarily waiting for them to just respond.
Thank you. Question 3. Part of the academic portfolio includes working on tuition increases. How will you collaborate with the external commissioner on this important issue?
I think, I'd just love to make a comment on the question. I think it's not necessarily always tuition increases, and I think that's a really important aspect to think about. Ontario has a very interesting challenge with so many post-secondary institutions, and I think that's the external aspect that's really challenging. I think one thing that we can do as well that's very different is that the current tuition model that the government imposes on our university on how we charge and what we can raise and what we cannot raise is up this year. And so it's up for debate, and it's up for the ability for us to lobby against it, or to lobby for something new. And I think that we have the opportunity as students to work with the administration, to work with external partners, not necessarily just CFS, but organizations that are a collection of the university presidents. And that if we work as a university of Guelph and say, we're the students, we're the faculty, or we're the staff, we're the administration, and this is what we believe is the best model for tuition, that voice cannot be negated at the top level. If we have dissension among the ranks and dissension in the views, it's very easy for the government to ignore that, and I want to have a strong, unified stance on what is best for students and what